I just said, what a pleasure. I'm so happy to be here and see you all. So we have an action-packed day today with wonderful programming that really speaks to women who are Latina and the challenges that they face in higher education. This is an incredible program and in our first inaugural kickoff. So we hope to see many more of this every year that goes by. I also want to acknowledge that we're doing this in a high flex environment, meaning that not only am I talking to you and our speakers are going to be talking to you, but there are about 60 other people from around the United States, including several people in California. Hi, California. I know it's really early for you. Who are watching us and listening to us. So that really makes it exciting. COVID did provide us with some good things because we all know how we feel about COVID. Anyway, I want to start off with asking our provost and our vice president for academic affairs, Dr. Lester Sandres Rapalo, to come to the stage because he's going to bring greetings from our president. Doctor. And where's Lester? Okay, then. Awkward. All righty then. This is the beauty of technology. You're going to see this happen in real time. Lester, we're all waiting for you. We started at 9:15. I'm not living up to the Spanish stereotype that we can't be on time. You know, there are just some stereotypes that you really try to break. So now I'm left up here to kill time. All right, there he is. All right. Dr. Rapalo started at BCC in the middle of the pandemic. He started the second week of February, and 3 weeks later, we had to pack up and go home. So it's been an interesting ride for him.
Muchísimas gracias, mi gente. Thank you so very much. Welcome, welcome, welcome. On behalf of our campus president, Dr. Thomas Ekenekvig, we want to welcome each and every one of you. This is a milestone for our community, for our leaders, and first of all, for all the Latinas and diverse women that are making a huge landmark in higher education and other industries. So on behalf of our campus president, unfortunately, who's not be able to make it today, I was mentioning to our special guest, Dr. Felipe de Cocos, the president of Hostos Community College, that his flight has been delayed, and unfortunately, he's not going to be able to join us today. But on his behalf, I want to say welcome, bienvenidos, esta es su casa, and enjoy the conference. This is an amazing opportunity to exchange ideas and learn from each other. All the different work paths that we have engaged in the midst of the pandemic and all the hurdles that our Latinas leaders have to face, in many cases being the first one to overcome many obstacles in the journey, whether that is in business, higher education, medicine, or if they want to venture to the NASA, right? So, but I also have I was outside, so my apologies, because I was waiting for Assemblywoman Tapia, a representative. I have two certificates that I would like to provide to our one of our colleagues, Dr. Irene Rebeca Delgado. One of them is from the United Nations and the Ambassador Carlos Garcia, and it reads, Dr. Irene Rebeca Delgado, in recognition of outstanding and invaluable service to the Hispanic community by implementing the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 17, Partnership for Development, he's issued this certificate. He represents the United Nations Association of El Salvador. So let's give her a nice round of applause, please. Thank you. This is your. Thank you. Thank you. And also the Assemblywoman from the 86th district, Yudelka Tapia, her office issued a citation for her ongoing support for the diverse community and our students. So enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. So having said that, welcome, enjoy it, and thank you so much for taking your precious time to be here with us today. And congratulations to all the team and the logistics support that provided to make this conference happen. So felicidades y disfrútenlo. Muchas gracias.
Well, now I should have told my mom to log on. She's not going to believe this. Anyway, thank you, Lester. Before we kick off and I start to talk about our amazing keynote speaker, as Dr. Rapalo mentioned, this was a huge coordinated effort and orchestrated by many people, but I would be remiss if I didn't give a personal shout out to two people who really started this as a little vision and blew it up into something that was huge, which is this. And it's inaugural, which means we are going to keep doing this year after year and become better and bigger to highlight the kind of work that we all do and give back to our sisters and brothers, because you don't have to be a Latina to be here. You just want to be learning is why you're here. So Luchy and Leidy, if you could come to the stage for a moment. Yeah, it takes visionaries to make it happen. And I think you two might want to say 2 seconds. 2 seconds.
Gracias. Thank you. Yo soy Valencia.
Oh, photo. Okay, go. You guys go. Okay, so you're really not here to hear me speak. What you really want to do is hear our keynote speaker, which is Dr. Daisy Cocco De Filippis. And there is an extensive bio in your program, but I'm going to mention a couple of highlights that I would be remiss if I didn't talk about them. So Dr. Cocco De Filippis returned to Hostos Community College in August of 2020 to serve as president after serving as president of Naugatuck Valley Community College, NVCC, from July 2008 to August 2012. The hallmark of her presidency at NVCC was a shared vision of community, student-centeredness, collaboration, and civic engagement. Under her guidance, student retention rose steadily, as did the number of associate degrees and certificates awarded. She oversaw the expansion of the Waterbury campus, the renovation of Founders Hall, and the campus improvement project. Now, if you noticed, I said she returned to Hostos, because for several years she served as the provost and senior vice president of academic affairs at Hostos Community College. When she returned to Hostos in August of 2020, we were in the throes of the COVID pandemic. On top of the challenges of moving an entire college to a remote modality, she ensured that Hostos Community Advisory Council continued to connect businesses, government, cultural leaders with her students. She developed the Velades Ostasianas Hostos Cultural Talks, a monthly meeting space for college-wide discussions on topics of human interest, and El Seminario Ostosiano, the Hostos Weekly, which focuses on uniting the college's multiple voices. In April of 2022, President Cocco De Filippis hosted a successful Middle States evaluation visit. And we all know the kind of work that goes into that, right? We know that pain. Dr. Cocco De Filippis holds a PhD in Latin American literature, a Master's of Philosophy in Spanish literature from the CUNY Graduate Center, an MA in Spanish literature, and a BA summa cum laude in Spanish and English literature from Queens College. She embodies CUNY. A published author and literary critic, she is recognized internationally as a pioneer in the field of Dominican women's studies and Dominican authors in the United States. In 2016, she was awarded an honorary doctorate in the humanities by the University of Santo Domingo in recognition of her contributions to Dominican, Caribbean, and Dominican diaspora literatures. In May 2017, she was honored by Hostos as Educator of the Year at their alumni scholarship benefit, their annual scholarship benefit. She was inducted as a member of Connecticut's Immigrant Heritage Hall of Fame in September of 2018 and was honored by the Malta House of Care as one of their 2019 Wonder Women. I ask that this Wonder Woman talk to us and share with us words of wisdom. I present to you Dr. Daisy Cocco De Filippis.
Me siento en familia, así es que voy a decir, so I'm just going to say very briefly, I left Nagato Valley in 2020 after 12 years. I served for 12 years as the president there. That's why I was able to do so many things there, because it was 12 years. It takes a few years. I just say that. You cannot be impatient. It takes a few years for you to begin to see the impact. So good morning. Muy buenos días. And I wrote, because that's basically, I write papers and then I talk. I read and I talk. I hope that's okay. All right? All right. All right. And I do hope that, I know we're running a little late, but I do hope to take a few questions because I'm sure that, I'm going to touch on very little and that you might have other things that you might want to question. So you're looking at the first in many ways, the first everything, because there were no Dominicans in CUNY. So everything you hear me, and every time I mention a professor, you know that it was either Puerto Rican or Jewish. And they mentor me like nobody. So I'll begin, and you'll hear some of it in a minute. So thank you. I'm grateful for this opportunity today. And you know where I live, so you could always reach out to me individually. I say that I volunteer. I've been mentoring for many, many years in multiple places, in literature and also in the academy. So I want to say your president is my esteemed colleague and such a great, great friend. He welcomed me to Hostos the moment he heard I was coming back. I was talking to him while I was in Connecticut and has been a great friend. I'm very, very grateful for what a gentleman he is, Provost. I'm speaking of you now. So he was waiting outside for me. So if he was running late, it's because he was waiting for somebody else. And so I understood. I said to him, let's tranquilo. Okay, so this is fine. I also want to thank very much Vice President Irene Delgado. She does us all proud as a woman and as a Latina leader. Thank you. And of course, I had a chance to actually get acquainted with Leidy and Luchy. They grilled me for, I would say, a half hour. We had a half hour getting to know one another. At some point, they just are the best. Watch out, I might want to steal them from here. So I wanted to say also the Womxn Up Resource Center and of course the Association of Latino Faculty and Staff at BCC and everybody, the women, leaders, teachers, faculty, and all the wonderful men who support them. And there's a few that I met, some really wonderful men in the audience, and there always have been, because I could tell you this, you look for kindred spirit and they come in every gender. And that's what you look for. So let me just say, this is a great audience, and I'm really, really happy to see listed at the end of the day, the guest speaker, Dr. Grisel Acosta, one of your own, and you should be proud of that. And that's a great thing to do, to recognize them while they're with us. So my journey, and I want to emphasize, this is just my journey. I always told, I gave many talks. I have given many talks in multiple places. We each have our own journey, or we may face some similar challenges, as you will hear. But we have different journeys and different ways of approaching them. The only thing we really need to do is be true to ourselves. So in the end, we take different journeys, but we have, I believe, similar goals. That of supporting education, advancing in our careers, because we all have a right to do that, but that's a collective because you advance when you are in the process of contributing to your field of studies. And if you notice, if you see my CV, I worked a lot with the community. I worked a lot in my field. And I also just, as opportunities came up at the college, your college was wonderful to me. They said, oh, Daisy can do this. And I would say, yes, I do it. Sometimes I felt like, oh my gosh, am I the only brown person here? You know, but you know, the time, most of it was white administration, and it was the minority faculty was very small at that time. There was one Dominican student. We formed the Dominican Studies the Dominican Studies Club there, and students from different parts, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, Chilean, Central American, everybody said, we join you. So we had a Dominican club with two Dominicans, one professor and one student, and she happened to be a poet, which was really wonderful, María. She was just great, beautiful poet. And so I'm just saying, you make common grounds. I want to say also that you will find again and again in any studies that you take, that women usually begin saying, I stand on the shoulder of my grandmother or my mother or my aunt. There are women in our lives that help tremendously. There are men too. I could say my husband of 50 years plus, who is my biggest cheerleader even now. But my grandmother, and you know, her name was Gabriela Menendez, and I used to call her Mama Biela. There's an article that I sort of reference here in some point that came out in a book that's called Telling to Live, Latina Feminist Testimonials. We were all academics. I was the only Dominican in that group at the time. We got a grant from the Rockefeller Foundation. And basically the house, you're looking at Mama Biela's house, because a lot of the house that she built, she knew, because my mother married, divorced and married again, that I was going to have a life with changes. So she wanted me to be very clear about who I was, what my values were, and the importance of people. Don't ever underestimate the importance of people. I still talk. I just gave a talk this spring at the Grad Center, part of a panel. And who was in the audience? My dissertation advisor, Dr. Gottlieb. When I was inaugurated at Nagato Valley, who was in the audience? Professor Wyman, my mentor at Queens College, the one who actually taught me Black literature, women literature, and really made me understand. And the other one who would have been there if he were alive, but he was killed in a gay bashing a couple of years after I finished Queens College, Professor Rafael Rodriguez. He taught me to love poetry. I'll quote just very, very little, because it's like my campus knows they get treated to a poem a week in that seminario. But you know, Rafi, as we called him, said to me, Nena, how can you be so ignorant of Dominican literature? And he started lending me and giving me books, introducing me Pedro Mead, and then my lifelong love for Pablo Neruda, I also learned in his class. I remember them, I carry them in my heart all this time. And I wanted to just say that I also think of my mom, that as timid as she was in many ways, when it came to time for me to go to junior high school, and I came, imagine me, the other who didn't speak English in junior high school, and they wanted to put me back to the 8th grade, and I should have been in the 9th grade. And mommy said no. Her name was Gabriela Miranda de Montelli. I remember her because she's as quiet as she was adamant with that counselor. She said, Daisy will make it. And let me tell you something. In 6 months, there was no bilingual program. I was in the honors program because I knew I had my grandmother on one side and my mother on the other. I'm putting that up front in case I don't get to really read all the paper. This is really important to me. Okay, so I just want to tell you a little bit of what my grandmother did for me. As we walked, she used to say to me, Daisy, we're going to go visit my mother's friends. So I used to hang out with old people as a young girl. And they all love this Daisita, they used to call me, little Daisy, right? So I know Christmas time, there will be little presents from all the little old ladies we visited for Daisita. Usually un pañuelito, you know, some chocolates, nothing major. And we walked the streets and she used to say, Daisy, look at that street. This is that woman. Nothing in the history books, but there were streets at the moment that they lived that they named. And so little by little, she really introduced me to the importance and the contribution, but mostly the connection of everything. So I'll read you this little part, because then when my children were born and Mama Viela was still alive and I brought her into Santo Domingo to visit, I saw her sit down with them and do the same thing. Mama Viela had been a teacher and I was now her pupil. So I write these lines. I recall in particular my introduction to a leaf. It was something to be touched, to be smelled, to be drawn, to be named, to be studied, to be praised, to be written about in a poem, to celebrate. Mama Viela taught me the scientific nomenclature as we discussed our relationship to the soil, the trunk, the flowers, fruits, the air and the weather, and so on. Her lessons combine theory and practical applications, but above all, a sense of and this, I hope stays with you, interconnectedness of all living beings, as well as the relationship among the diverse manifestations of the human spirit and intellect. So she was teaching me diversity from very basic, just our common relationship with nature and to one another. So when I parted from her at age 13 to join my mother and stepfather in New York City, I have to tell you, I thought I'd die being without her. I didn't know how to be without Mama Viela, but she's with me every day, even today. She's with me because there's not a day in my life, all these years later, that I don't remember her. So I began public schooling in Flushing, New York in the 9th grade. There again, my mother, I already told you that part, that she really fought for me. So inspired by them, I really, really did well, which it did not earn me. It earned me the love and respect of my teachers. They were great to me. I think I became a professor and a teacher because I thought all of my life I'd be a lawyer because I'm pretty argumentative. I'm pretty outspoken, but it was when I saw what those teachers could do. What they could do, if we do it right, what we could do to change lives in ways. So I had to face the other, and I wrote about that somewhere else. I'm not going to deal with that, but it was not pretty to be the other in the 9th grade and being in a classroom where I was the only Latina, this Dominican American woman. So as I consult multiple studies in academia and Latinas in higher education, there's a common denominator that appears. There's a gap of about 20% in degree attainment, even now, from our white counterparts, okay? And we do better than 20% better than the men. So that tells you where the men are right now, okay? For the most part, including at some women colleges. This was a shock of this report. The professors who were male were paid 6 to 10% more than the women. You look around, you know, also full professorships, are we even? You know, anywhere you look, privates or not, I don't know. You look at our salaries. You know, women tend to gravitate to community colleges. The majority of women presidents in the nation are women. And they get paid on average about $100,000 less than the men who teach at the universities or senior colleges, who lead, I should say. Okay, so you more recently, even I was just meeting a couple of weeks ago with the provost and just looking at the outcomes of our own students graduating in the same field of studies and job placements after 1 year and salaries. Men and women, the men average 3% more. Same community college associate degree. So there's something that I always say, know your value, sit down and negotiate, and don't, within what is appropriate. I remember when I became a provost, the president said to me, you know, this is a salary range, as she was offering me the position. And they had, at that time, they had some issues with middle states. So I had a year when I came in as a provost to clean it up. I came back and I said, it's my karma, right? Because I come back, there were no issues with middle states, but the process was just beginning. And I found this wonderful faculty, really wonderful faculty and team, many of whom I have recommended for hiring when I was the provost. So I said, oh, I did something right, right? So we ended up, in fact, being commended. And now I just signed a couple of weeks ago, authorization for middle states to use our self-study as an example when they train new presidents and how what a self-study should look like. Isn't that wonderful? Yeah, right? 100 people at the college in the most democratic process ever participated in the subcommittees with equal leadership for everyone. I had a little experience because I had been the commissioner, one of the commissioners for the New England Commission on Higher Education when I was, and I think most of these accreditations have very similar. There are some things that are a little different, but for the most part, they're very similar. So that I was able to just ask questions mainly, and they did. It was just fabulous at work. The college owns that big time. So they also tell you there's these two wonderful young women who teach who are professors at Northern Arizona University. They have an essay that's called Narratives from Latina Professors in Higher Education. And they summarize the challenges. I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 of the bullet points they have in that. Minority faculty tend to be more burdened with service activities. We advise all the junior faculty members to defer. Minority faculty are often saddled with the dirty chores of the department and time-consuming committee appointments that may leave little time for research and scholarship. I'll give you my example of what happened to me in a second. And minority faculty are assigned responsibility because of their presumed knowledge of cultural differences, being called upon to be the experts in matters of diversity. A minority faculty scholarship is often seen as tangential and peripheral. I'll give you, taking all into consideration, all of that, and let me tell you, my temperament is that always the glass is half full, not half empty. And I take burdens and I turn them around as best I can so that it works out. So I'll give you what happened to me. So I have this wonderful Professor Gottlieb that I just mentioned to you was when I just talked at the Graduate Center. She's still with me this many years later, talking about early 80s, when I sat down to write my dissertation. And I wanted to do a dissertation on Dominican poetry. Why? Because they have been, other than Rafi's books that he shared with me, there was nothing in the curriculum. The faculty at CUNY for the long time many supplement and fill the gaps that are still, and that the curriculum has yet to catch up. So Professor Gottlieb said to me, they say, let's send a proposal where you don't just write about one, but you write about the first half century, her first half of the 20th century. So it's really the trends, that the 3 different movements, poetic movements, how they connected to the Caribbean, how they connected to the literature in Mexico, in Latin America, and so on. And so we did, and they said, well, what's Dominican literature? You know what today they call brown on brown research, right? So that was then, that my same beloved CUNY at the time, that place, and my same beloved professor at CUNY, who was not Dominican. And she said, you know what we're gonna do, Daisy? At that time, there was this professor at Columbia University, Michel Rivater, who wrote the Semiotics of Poetry. We're gonna use Rivater's method and apply it to the first 50 years of Dominican 20th century literature. And I said to myself, oh, I can't say, but I said to myself, but I said, okay, it's another learning experience, right? So went back and took a few other linguistics course so I have more than my 128 credits for sure. Went back to Queens College, and I said, let me take these linguistic courses so that I can really become proficient in semiotics. So that delayed it for about a year or so. But let me just tell you what the outcome was. So that when my stepfather, who had gone back to the Dominican Republic, I asked him to peddle my dissertation over there to see if we would find a publisher when I defended it. Okay. And they accepted it for publication. The book, that was my first book. I had to adjust some things so that it would be readable. The Semiotic Studies of Dominican Poetry, that's the title. Became a bestseller immediately because he hit some controversial topics. And this analysis, which was very objective and clear and really just dealt with the text, not anything else. All of a sudden, this kid, because I was a nobody then, people knew me, people were asking to come visit me, to talk with me in New York. And when I finally got to Santo Domingo to talk to the publisher, because she was saying to me, I really would like to meet you because anything you write, we want to publish again. And she saw me and she said, oh my goodness, you're too young to have written this book. So I've always been old, you see. I always knew my place. Now I'm old. But anyway, I want to also say that the other thing, so it became, and all of a sudden I was a personality over there, and it's a small niche, but it's a beginning of a niche, and then I became the authority. And Daisy would go here and there. Okay. And then when I became an administrator and I get to Nagato Valley Community College, there was something missing there. What was missing there, and I love that place dearly, 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 let me tell you, I have many friends there, like I have friends at York, like I have friends everywhere, because I don't forget my friends. But it felt soulless. Everything was beige. I was coming from Hostos, where there was this life thriving of art and music and theater, right? And the corridors were just empty. And I said, where are the kids? And it was arranged. It was, I'm sure it was arranged to have the minimal presence of students. And there was no COVID. So listen. So I said, okay, first of all, we're going to use semiotics to understand why is the Office of Disabilities at the end of the world and not in the counseling area, next to the testing area, next to whatever. So I realized then that that's what they call for the space, lean management. So semiotics for me as an administrator then, so it helped me. It helped me that to have in 1 year, if you put the student at the center, everything that happens has to happen for a reason that makes sense. If our purpose is to help our students be happy and be successful. Those changes then went on to see, wait, you know, when I was at Hostos, I had created the Hostos Academic Learning Center, which is concentrating all the tutoring resources in one area that they could find easily accessible. And I just decided, because I walk, as you can see, I may not be able to do too many stairs now, but I walk everywhere. And what I saw was that they had in different offices, there were the tutors. And I walk in and they're reading books, which is great. It's great that they read books. As you know, I celebrate books, I give out books, I raffle books everywhere because I believe this is an academic institution. That's what we do. I said, but where are the students? How, if it took me so long to walk around the campus to find the tutors, they need to be in one place. So you know how popular I was my first year when people, when offices have to be met. And then, you know, we had a wonderful architect on campus, and Connecticut was all by rules, right? So I waited till we had moved walls, created instead flexible walls so the students could sit and create spaces. Then I took the chancellor for a walk. I said, Chancellor, take a look what we just created. And he sort of gasped. And he said, Daisy, you didn't go through the Attorney General's office. I said, I'm sorry, that was a dumb mistake on my part. Apologize. Too late, it was done. And the students then, the completions for the students more than double. When I read my predecessor write in our anniversary book that for his 23 years, he was so proud that 5,000 students had graduated. And I was then in my 10th year, and I had about 12,000 who had graduated on it because we had double, because we tracked them down, we emphasized the support area. And this is all, by the way, all of it, that's semiotics, the damn semiotics that I had to study for a year. So I used it that way. I'm going to use one more example, and then I think because we're getting late. I believe that the unity of art, scholarship, pedagogy, and life is truth, my truth. There are many other ways of being and doing. A truth I share with multiple aspiring scholars or administrators over my years presenting. I was a regular at the Hearst Institute of Wellesley every spring. I recommend the Hearst Institute. We will begin now this coming year, 23, to send some of the women at the college to go there. They're about this. They're not going to teach you how to do this and that. They're going to teach you to understand yourself. What are your strengths? Why are you doing? And let me just say one more thing. You absolutely cannot walk into a job interview and say, I'm here because I want to become a college president. I remember that. And somebody was being hired to be a counselor. So I said, that's great for you. I said, well, what do we get? What do you know about the college? What do you have to bring? Love the job you have. It's the one you have. The better you do at it, the better sometimes you will sacrifice a little bit. But then you will find that people notice. And if they don't notice, you make it a habit of going to visit your chair, your dean, whoever that may be, and say, you know what I'm doing now? And here's an invitation. Why don't you join me when I'm giving this paper? And when other people at the college are giving a paper and you don't have a class to teach, make time to go support your colleague, because when you do it, they'll support you. And you build friendships outside of your department so that you get to begin to see that there are so many multiple ways that people operate, and the people who are not that close with you are not going to just yes, yes, yes. You will have honest conversations for good and for bad, but do that. And then I just want to say a couple of more things. I was asked to sit and be the secretary of the faculty caucus at your college. This is at the time that I hadn't have a computer. And we were revising the charter. Little did I know that I would, work on multiple revisions until the president could accept the new charter and so on. In the meanwhile, all those Black students and Latino students that were at the school that were sent to me as one of 4 Latinas at the college and got to know me and trust me. So by the time the chair of the faculty caucus was was taking a sabbatical. Everybody said, Daisy can do this. I had only been secretary for 7 years, taking all the notes. What had I learned? Because over there, the Senate was a college Senate presided by the president. There were 5 administrators who could participate, and the other half was half students, half faculty and staff. Because I always visited the Students Caucus, the Student Government Association. Half of them were my friends, mentee, and trusted me. I was able, as the leader of the Senate, to change the core requirements to include 2 courses on diversity and languages other than English. Why? Because our students then who spoke another language and were taking ESL could take their placements there and the advanced credit and get credit for those, so that whatever extra time they were spending for ESL, they could do that. In the end, it made me, I learned to be a leader because I used to be very shy about speaking in public by becoming the head of the faculty caucus. So that when the new president came, she said to me, Dr. De Filippis, I was 17 years into this job, my first sabbatical. She called me at home. She said, I met you. I really need you to come back, to come to academic affairs. So boom, I jumped into academic affairs before I was even a chair. And it was the leadership at the Senate that little by little I was pushed to do that benefited the students, but also benefited me. I grew immensely. I never asked to be paid extra for anything. It was my contribution to the college. That's why as soon as I defended my dissertation, they said a position is open and it belongs to Daisy in the department. And, and I remember the provost walking down and said, I hear they say Dr. De Filippis in the house, just to say hello. And my students were great because they used to call me Daisy, and then they call me Dr. Daisy. So I became Dr. Daisy for most of them, even now. So I want to just finish. I'm going to skip a few pages and just want to say, my goal now as president is to make sure that we implement even more so, because Hostos has had great presidents and has been a good place to inherit from other presidents. And I'm number 8. Some of Eugenio María de Hostos beliefs and Paulo Freire's later came up with a philosophy that our own Don Eugenio had written in the 80s, in the 1880s, okay? And so it is participatory, experiential, a non-hierarchical structure administration. I went to Nagato Valley as a president, a school that was white, primarily because the buses were not running in the evening. And so our students of color were not getting to the college. Guess what? The first year I was there, I organized marches, protests, and so that ultimately, the trustees used to say, don't mess with her, she'll just march too hard with the kids. And we got evening bus service and then changed your life. I left the college Hispanic serving institution, okay? And about 13% Black, with about an increase of about 500% of graduates that were, and the graduates that were Hispanic and Black. But you look to the student always, because if you believe you're, whatever it is, whatever position you have, as you work for them, you learn, you grow, and then your own ambitions are fulfilled. So I just want to say, I'm going to quote just one line from our beloved Julia de Burgos. And we're having on Monday, I hope you all receive this because it's been distributed widely. We have an afternoon of Julia de Burgos at Hostos. So I hope you can make it because it's really beautiful. So I want to say she has a poem that I love because it falls with my philosophy. Yo misma fui mi ruta. I was my own route, my own journey. Why? Because your journey will be defined by your zones of comfort, by your values, by your beliefs, and by your ability to feel. And don't forget your family. I'm still married. I mean, I married young. They said right out of high school, they said, this is not going to last. This is a very stubborn girl, right? Not my husband, who's a saint. We're still married, very happily so. And I want to just close by saying, the future belongs to young women like my own Alexa and Marley, my two beautiful granddaughters. I'm the mother of 3 sons, all these sons. And that I remember I saying to the gynecologist, I'm just going to have to change husbands. You know, what is this? 3 boys, right? So they said, don't worry, you'll have granddaughters. So there they are. There's 2 wonderful granddaughters. One is a freshman at Northwestern University this semester. Very smart, but most of all, really kind, good people who care about others. So bendiciones, and thank you for having me.
Well, now that I know that we can call her Dr. Daisy, Dr. Daisy, we would like to thank you and give you some beautiful flowers and a citation presented to you by Lady Pichardo. So she's gonna. Okay, so while we're doing some fabulous pictures, session 1 starts right now. So, but before I talk about session 1, reminder, lunch is at 12 o'clock upstairs in 211, and then we will have session 3 and 4, and then the closing remarks will be back in the Playhouse at 3 o'clock promptly. So now you can either go to, we have 4 fabulous sessions. One is programs that promote Latinx student success, and that's in North Hall 117. Beyond Paving the Way 120. Borrowing, pidiendo prestado, using social science tools in the basic sciences 133. Mental health care and trauma-informed pedagogy for Latina students 210. We have some fabulous BMI and SGA students who will walk you over. It is the building right across the little path. And I will see you all at lunchtime at 12 o'clock. Enjoy. Thank you, Doctora Daisy.